Hey everybody, it's Rebecca Good with Homeschool Conversations. I wanted to talk briefly about assessment or giving a test. And most people, when they think of school, they think of studying all week, memorizing a bunch of facts, and then on Friday you take your test and then you get your grade. When I started homeschooling, I thought that's kind of how things would be, and I would just get a book and a curriculum and go through it and give a test. And there are some people who do it that way, and that's great. I have taken a different approach in my homeschool to assessment. I like to do what I call authentic assessment, is where I will give an activity, something that would be a real life kind of thing. I really enjoy writing assignments, because that way I can really see how someone is processing the information, and then I can also get a look at grammar and punctuation and things like that. So those are the types of assessments that I prefer, and I kind of am assessing my children kind of all day long. As we're going through math, I'm seeing what they're missing, what they're flying through, and then if they're doing very well on something, then I can skip it and move ahead. If I see that they're struggling on something, then we can kind of go back and review it. We don't have to even review it right in that moment. If they're hitting a level of frustration, we can wait and then come back and revisit it later. When it comes to reading, I know a lot of in the public schools, the kids will read a book, take a test on the computer, and that measures the comprehension. I prefer for my children to read, and then they talk to me about what they read, or they ask questions, and so I can see what it is that they're not understanding. So I just prefer to do it in a conversation type format, so I can really tell what they're understanding and what they're not. As far as formal assessments for the state and local guidelines, there's some different options, and I actually took a different option this year, so I'll talk about what I've done in the past and what I did this year, and just kind of my thoughts on that, of kind of where I want to go with that. In the past, I've done the CAT, the California Achievement Test, the old school one that we did back in third grade, or at least I did. And it's, just pretty much the straightforward, the reading. You have like the little passage, and then you've got the multiple choice questions that follow. And there's language arts section with, grammar, punctuation rules, fairly standard. And then there's math. Comprehension, and it's broken down by grade level. So the first several years that I was homeschooling, I did that. I see value in that. I know when I would get the results back, my kids were excited to see how they were comparing to their peers out there throughout the nation. So there was some value in that. And my concern with those is that there were times where there were certain sections where they didn't do as well, but I couldn't see exactly which questions they missed, and it didn't tell me exactly which skills they were missing for me to be able to go back on it. It was just a comparison of them and other, nebulous students out there. So as far as really pinpointing, a more formative assessment, I didn't feel that it was as valuable in that area. And it did cause a little bit of stress at times. Just the formality of it and just the finality of it, I think just kind of causes a little bit of a psychological surge, especially for kids. Even homeschool, even, sitting here doing it alone, versus even being in a big classroom with a bunch of kids. So this year I took the route of doing a narrative evaluation. And I do hold a master's degree. And here in Virginia, if you hold a master's degree in any area, you are credentialed to be able to provide a narrative evaluation of a homeschool student. So I did that for both of my children. I did base that on their math curriculum. They've kept a notebook, going through all of the lessons. And then I had the SOLs printed out. And then they had some practice tests and things that I had given them to, just to kind of give an idea, but it didn't hold for them. I think like the psychological, like I said, the feel that the formal, the actual CAT test had. So I did use that as evidence. So it wasn't just like, oh, I feel they're great. You do have to base it on something, but you don't have to actually hand in those particular, whatever evidence that you use to make that narrative evaluation. You should have it in case they do come and want to ask, more about that, of where did you get that idea from, what are you basing that on as far as these students being on grade level. So that is what I did this year. I think I'm going to keep doing that. Like I said, we spent a long time on math this year. I think we got a little bit of a late start just trying to find the right curriculum. We currently use the Saxon curriculum, and there's 120 math lessons, and then there's 12 what are called investigations. It's not my favorite, but we have a wonderful math tutor, and that's what she picked. So I'm willing to get through it with that curriculum just because I love her, and she's really wonderful with the kids. But it's probably not what I would have picked out if it had been my own particular choice. In the past, we've used Brain Quest, which you actually probably can see behind me. And I did like Brain Quest because you could move around, you could do a little geometry, you could do a little number sense, you could do a little, probability, word problems versus computation, just kind of move it around. The Saxon, like it lays everything out for you. So like I said, I'm just not as crazy about it, but with this year, like I said, our math kind of drug on into the summer a little longer than I thought it would. So like all that to say, I probably will do the narrative evaluation again. But I want to get the math curriculum wrapped up a little bit sooner, so that way we can get through those last couple of lessons in that particular book and really see, how they're doing on that. 'Cause I felt like math did drag on a bit longer. But again, that's the great thing about homeschool is you can take that time if you need it, or if you can get through it faster. It's totally at your own pace. And I told this story before once with my daughter a year or two ago. We were doing something with fractions, I think. And I was just having trouble explaining it. She was having trouble understanding it. It was just tension. So I finally just said, forget it. We're just going to put this down for today and do something else. And so we did that. And then one day went by, another day went by, and after a month, we hadn't picked it back up yet. And so finally I said, okay, we need to pick this back up. And then as soon as we picked it up, she was able to understand the concept, and we moved right past that question and just blew, all the time that we had stopped, we were able to make all of that up, just because of that break. So I use that as a testimony to say, if you need a break on a particular subject, if it's coming to, a point of tension, that's okay to take a break. And again, I want to explore more also the role of, as a parent and a teacher, that coming together in a homeschool environment. It's a totally different dynamic than you would if, as a teacher, working with a student. You're not going to hit that level of frustration as quickly. I think there's various reasons for that. Because as a parent, you're looking at this kid of, I'm sending them out into the world. I have to prepare them, for everything. Whereas as a teacher, you're looking at, okay, I just need to teach this one concept. So in the homeschool environment, there's just so much going on. It is kind of hard to separate those things, but I think ultimately, that it's just imperative that kids have that investment, that we're showing them we're making an investment in all of them. And I certainly think it's possible, but it's just, again, to be aware of sometimes the level of frustration that we will hit with our own children and that we would with another child can be very different. But I think it teaches you a lot about yourself. I heard one person describe homeschooling as parenting on steroids. And I think that's such an interesting way of of wording it, because it does take the parenting to a whole new level. But like I said, I think it's a wonderful and worthwhile experience. So again, all that to say, when you're teaching, if you need to take a break, take it. And as far as the assessments, when you get to the end, there's a lot of different options. Like I said, that's what I've done in the past, is the CAT. It's really easy to get it. I just got it through Academic Excellence. I think it was $25. And I just got the hard copy, but some people do it online. But this past year, because I do have a master's degree, I was able to submit my own narrative assessment. It was maybe a one-page letter, and I just described, what my kids were currently doing with their math, reading, and language arts. And I just explained why I felt that they had made the adequate progress, what I was basing that on. And I just submitted that in a letter to my local school board, and everything was great. And again, I do keep copies. I try to keep attendance. I do have a planner where I, mark down, what we worked on every day. So if anybody ever wants to come and see it, I'll have everything ready. And I do keep a portfolio of, especially like their journal writing. Again, I think, to me, a portfolio of actual like daily writing assignments, to me, is a more rich, authentic assessment than tons of, multiple choice, rote memorization kind of things. Not saying there's not any value in that. I'm just saying, I think we do need to move beyond that, especially as kids are getting older. We need to really see what they're comprehending. And the biggest piece of assessment for me, and one of the main advantages that I see in homeschool, is that you can give the feedback immediately. Whereas with a standardized test or a bigger test, sometimes you'll just see how many questions you got wrong, but you don't know which ones you got wrong. So how can you go back and change that or get feedback on that? But like I said, with writing assignments and with math, with my kids every day, we can just kind of go through it and see, what did I miss? What do I need to work on? And, how can I incorporate and make this, even a little bit better immediately, and not have to wait for that. So that's a little bit about formative assessments and evaluative assessments in a homeschool environment. So I hope that this is helpful to everybody. If you have ideas about how you are doing assessments, or maybe you're not and you feel like you should be doing it a little bit more, please chime in and talk about that. If you have other standardized tests that you would recommend, if you still feel that kids need to test every Friday and have their spelling tests, I'd love to hear more about that. Again, this is how I do homeschool, but that's the great thing about homeschool, is everybody can choose a little bit of a different approach for their kids. Take care, everybody. Bye.